The Golden Snitch. Every Quidditch match ends with a tiny golden ball, and that ball exists because wizards nearly hunted a species out of existence for fun. Meet the Golden Snidget, an absurdly fast little bird whose troubles began when the chief of the Wizards' Council released one into a patch mid-game and offered 150 galleons to whoever caught it, a fortune worth roughly $1 million in modern money. The players abandoned the match on the spot. One witch in the crowd, Modesty Rabnot, summoned the bird to safety and got fined for her kindness. But the damage was done. Catching Snidgets became part of the game. Teams added an entire new position for it, and the bird spent the next century being chased toward extinction. Enter Bowman Wright, a metal charmer from Godric's Hollow, because apparently that village produces legends the way other villages produce turnips. When Snidgets became a protected species, Quidditch faced a crisis. Its most exciting element was now illegal. Wright's answer was a walnut-sized golden ball that matched a live Snidget's weight, and copied its flight down to the last panicked swerve, enchanted to stay inside the pitch and dodge capture for hours. Fun fact, the Snidget never fully let go of its past. Each one carries a flesh memory and recognizes the first person who touched it, which is exactly why Dumbledore could hide the resurrection stone inside one for Harry. And those 150 points for the catch, a tribute to the original reckless bribe. Nimbus. Who turned the broomstick from a splintery household chore into the sports car of the sky? Devlin Whitehorn, founder of the Nimbus Racing Broom Company, and the man responsible for every wizard's midlife crisis purchase. For most of history, brooms were transparent first and torture second. Riders sat on raw wood and simply endured it. The racing era began when Gladys Boothby's moon trimmer climbed higher than anything before it, and demand instantly buried her since she built each broom by hand. The Comet Trading Company followed with a patented braking charm, which says everything about how brooms stopped before that. Then, Whitehorn arrived in the 1960s and the market never recovered. His Nimbus 1000 hit 100 miles per hour and could spin a full circle in midair, combining the reliability of these sturdy old family models with the agility racers craved. Quidditch teams switched almost overnight, and Nimbus became the word every young flyer scribbled on Christmas lists for the next 3 decades. Translation: Whitehorn invented broomstick envy. The Nimbus 2000 was the reason an entire school gasped when a first year got one, and the Nimbus 2001 carried Draco Malfoy onto the Slytherin team after his father bought 7 for the squad, proving the brand worked equally well as sporting equipment and as a bribe. Harry's own 2000 served him loyally until the Whomping Willow smashed it, which technically makes a tree the only opponent a Nimbus ever lost to. Firebolt. Around the early 90s, the Nimbus Racing Broom Company was crushing it. Then the Firebolt appeared and dethroned them in seconds. The one responsible? Meet Randolph Spudmore. Spudmore came from broom-making royalty of the quieter kind. His father, Alba, ran Ellerby and Spudmore, a respectable firm known for sturdy, sensible models that nobody ever gasped at. Randolph clearly found that unbearable, because he developed the Firebolt in near-total secrecy, polishing a machine designed to embarrass everything else in the air. The Firebolt reached 150 miles per hour, with acceleration that folded stomachs, and its secret weapon was diplomacy. Spudmore was the first designer to use goblin-made ironwork for the footrests and fittings. Given how goblins feel about wizards handling their metalwork, getting them to supply parts for a broomstick counts as a diplomatic miracle. The goblins naturally kept the iron's exact composition to themselves, which means part of the world's fastest broom is a trade secret even its creator couldn't fully explain. The price tag was so steep the shops wouldn't print it, and the entire Irish national team rode Firebolt to a World Cup victory, which is the kind of advertising money can't buy. Basically, one Firebolt changed Harry's life too. Sirius brought him one as the world's most extravagant apology for 12 missed birthdays. The Sword of Gryffindor. Goblins are known for being master metalworkers, and one of them created this exact sword, Ragnarok the First, king of the goblins and the finest silversmith of his age. Godric Gryffindor commissioned a sword, and Ragnarok delivered a masterpiece, pure goblin silver, rubies in the hilt, and craftsmanship so fine the blade absorbs anything that makes it stronger. Then Ragnuk looked at his finished work, decided it was too good for a human, announced that Gryffindor had stolen it, and sent goblins to take it back. Gryffindor fought them off without killing anyone, then sent a message that boiled down to, "Try that again and the sword gets a field test." The goblins never forgot. 1,000 years later, Griphook still calls the sword stolen property, with a completely straight face. Here's the real gossip. By goblin law, Ragnuk had a point. Goblins believe the maker of an object remains its true owner forever, and a buyer merely rents it until death. Selling something to a human who then passes it to heirs looks to a goblin like theft in slow motion. So, both sides spent 10 centuries convinced they were right, which is the most realistic thing in the entire franchise. The sword itself outdid everyone. It soaked up basilisk venom in the Chamber of Secrets, became one of a few objects capable of destroying horcruxes, and developed a flair for drama, appearing out of hats and lakes at the exact moment a Gryffindor needed it. The Flying Ford Anglia. Arthur Weasley enforced the laws against enchanting Muggle objects, then went home and enchanted one. The head of the Misuse of Muggle Artifacts office was also its biggest offender, and his proudest creation was a turquoise Ford Anglia, an aggressively ordinary Muggle car that Arthur quietly upgraded with flight, an invisibility booster, and an interior expanded to fit 8 people and 6 trunks. He even wrote the loophole into his own legislation. Enchanting the car was fine as long as nobody intended to fly it. Intentions, of course, lasted right up until his son stole it to rescue Harry from a barred bedroom. This is technomancy at its finest, the fine wizarding art of taking Muggle machinery and teaching it magic. Sirius Black played the same game with his flying motorcycle, the one that carried baby Harry to Privet Drive, and it eventually ended up in Arthur's shed for repairs too, because every enchanted vehicle in Britain apparently retires at the Burrow. The Anglia story ended in style. After Harry and Ron flew it into the Whomping Willow, the car ejected them, dumped their luggage, and drove off into the Forbidden Forest to live as a wild animal. The car, as it happened, could hold a grudge and still show up when it counted. It came roaring out of the trees to save the boys from Aragog's family. Floo powder. How do wizards feel about a transport system that requires standing inside a lit fireplace? They love it, and they owe it to Ignatia Wildsmith, a Ravenclaw witch from the 13th century who discovered the magical properties of the Floo plant and ground it into the most successful travel product in wizarding history. The story goes that she once spent 2 nights sleeping in a corridor because the Ravenclaw door knocker asked a riddle she couldn't crack, and decided humanity needed a way to travel that skips doors entirely, a petty grudge that quietly reshaped magical transport forever. The catch? Nobody has ever replicated her recipe. Hundreds of years later, the exact formula remains a guarded secret, and the only licensed producer in Britain is a company called Floo that famously never answers its front door. Wizards who tried brewing their own ended up in St. Mungo's, which suggests the recipe involves more than enthusiasm. Meanwhile, the price has stayed frozen at 2 sickles a scoop for 100 years, making Floo powder the single most stable thing in the wizarding economy. Wildsmith's invention quietly runs the entire magical world. The Ministry connects fireplaces through it. Families shout their destinations through it, and Harry famously mispronounced his way into Nocturne Alley through it, proving the system's one flaw is dictation. Her name even comes from the Latin for fire, so either her parents predicted the future, or she committed to the brand impressively hard. The Philosopher's Stone. What kind of wizard invents immortality and then spends it gardening in Devon? Meet Nicolas Flamel, the only maker of the Philosopher's Stone in recorded history. The stone produces the elixir of life and turns any metal into pure gold, which makes it the most dangerous rock ever created. And Flamel guarded it with the way most people guard a spare umbrella. Turns out Flamel was a real person. The historical Flamel was a Parisian bookseller from the 1300s who became a legend when rumors spread that he had cracked alchemy. The wizarding version leans into that legend hard. By the time Harry starts poking around, Flamel has celebrated his 665th birthday and lives quietly with his wife Peverell, who is 658 and presumably very tired of his cooking. Flamel also happens to be Dumbledore's old alchemy partner, which explains why the stone ended up behind a 3-headed dog in a school full of children, instead of, say, a proper vault. When Voldemort came sniffing after it, Flamel made a choice most immortals would rather chew glass than consider. He agreed to destroy his own masterpiece. He and Peverell just kept enough elixir to set their affairs in order and leave on their own terms. 6 centuries of life ended voluntarily to stop one bald maniac from living forever. And Flamel even shows up in the Grindelwald era, very much alive and looking like a polite raisin. The man built eternity and treated it like a library card. The first horcrux. Long before Voldemort made his first horcrux, an ancient Greek wizard had already written the manual. Herpo the Foul earned his surname several times over. He was one of the earliest known Parselmouths and the first wizard in history to split his soul and lock the piece inside an object. His curses were vile enough to survive in records for 2,000 years. Herpo's other claim to infamy crawls. After long experimentation, he discovered that a chicken egg hatched beneath a toad produces a basilisk, the king of serpents, a creature that kills with eye contact. He could control the thing only because he spoke its language, which made him the sole wizard on the planet safe around his own invention. And here's the part nobody talks about. Basilisk venom is one of a few substances that destroys a horcrux. Herpo invented the poison for his own immortality and never noticed. What object held his soul? Fragment? Unknown. Did anyone ever destroy it? Also unknown. Which leaves the genuinely uncomfortable possibility that somewhere out there, a 2,000-year-old fragment of history's original dark experimenter is still anchored to the world, waiting inside some forgotten Greek pot. Dumbledore theorized wizards had died attempting what Herpo achieved, so the man was horrifyingly competent at something nobody else survived. Every dark wizard since has been reheating his recipes. The deluminator. What gadget does the greatest wizard of his age invent when he can already do anything with a wand? A cigarette lighter that steals light. The deluminator, Dumbledore's own creation, looks like a silver smoking accessory and does one thing on the surface. Click it, and every lamp on the street goes out. Click again, and the light flies home. Dumbledore built the only one in existence and used it mostly for sneaking around Privet Drive unnoticed, which is a lot of genius spent on avoiding small talk with muggles. Then he died and left it to Ron Weasley, and the Ministry got so suspicious they held the will for a month studying it. They found nothing, because the deluminator's real function only worked for its intended owner. When Ron abandoned Harry and Hermione in the woods and hit rock bottom, the device let him hear Hermione's voice saying his name, and produced a ball of light that passed into his chest and led him straight back to his friends. Dumbledore had built a homing beacon for a lost heart, disguised as a lamp thief. The Marauders map. Most legendary artifacts are built by ancient wizards, dark lords, or goblin kings. This one was built by 4 teenagers to help their friend with his werewolf transformations, without getting caught. Remus, Lupin, Peter Pettigrew, Sirius Black, and James Potter created the Marauders map during their school years at Hogwarts. James used his invisibility cloak to draw the map without being noticed, and between them they managed to chart every corridor, secret passage, and broom cupboard in a castle that actively rearranges itself. The fact that they pulled this off while also becoming illegal animagi to keep Lupin company during full moons suggests their homework never stood a chance. The map tracks every living person inside Hogwarts in real time, labeled by their true name, which is how it casually exposed Peter Pettigrew hiding as a rat for 12 years, when nobody else in the wizarding world had noticed. Most fans don't realize the map also has personality. When Snape tried to force it open, the parchment insulted him by name, from all 4 creators individually, meaning they sat down as students and specifically programmed comebacks for their least favorite teacher. That grudge outlived 2 of them. After the Marauders graduated, the map ended up confiscated in Filch's filing cabinet, where it sat for years until Fred and George Weasley liberated it and eventually passed it to Harry. Built and inherited exclusively by rule breakers, the map spent its entire life in the hands of people Filch would have loved to expel, which feels like exactly the legacy 4 teenage troublemakers would have wanted. The Sorting Hat. The Sorting Hat started life as Godric Gryffindor's actual hat, which already says a lot about wizard fashion. When Gryffindor, Hufflepuff, Ravenclaw, and Slytherin realized they wouldn't live forever and couldn't agree on sorting standards while alive, they solved both problems at once, poured their collective judgment into the fabric, and let the hat wake up opinionated, fully capable of reading minds on contact. Here's the embarrassing part. 1,000 years later, the hat is still doing the job, which means a piece of enchanted fabric has shown more commitment to education than the people who enchanted it. It delivers its verdict in seconds, occasionally takes requests into consideration. Harry talked his way out of Slytherin within his first minute at school, and sings a brand new original composition every September, which makes it the most productive songwriter in Britain by a wide margin. It also moonlights as a weapon delivery system. When a true Gryffindor needs help badly enough, the Sword of Gryffindor materializes inside it, meaning the founders essentially built a sentient wardrobe item with an emergency compartment. Every year it judges a room full of terrified children and goes back on the shelf until the next batch arrives. The Elder Wand. Who made the most powerful wand in history? Well, it depends on whether you believe fairy tales. The official version, straight from the tales of Beetle the Bard, says Death himself fashioned the Elder Wand from a branch of an elder tree as a gift for Antioch Peverell, the eldest of 3 brothers who outsmarted him at a river crossing. Dumbledore's version is less romantic. The brothers were simply gifted wizards, and Antioch crafted the wand himself. Either way, somebody built a weapon so dominant it turned every future owner into a target. The wand's core is thestral tail hair, the only known wand in existence to carry one. Thestral hair is considered the most difficult core to master, and it responds only to a wizard capable of accepting death, which is a brutal admission fee for a weapon designed to win every fight. Quick note, the wand doesn't follow bloodlines or loyalty, it follows defeat. Disarm the owner or knock them unconscious in a bathroom, the wand switches sides with the emotional attachment of a taximeter. Antioch lasted about 1 evening with his prize. He bragged about the wand's power at an inn, drank too much, and had his throat cut in his sleep by someone who wanted it more. That set the pattern for generations. Every master died violently until Dumbledore broke the cycle by arranging his own death so the wand would lose its allegiance entirely. The Resurrection Stone. What makes it terrifying is the sales pitch. A stone that brings back the dead sounds like a mercy, and Cadmus Peverell, the middle brother, asked for exactly that. Whether Death crafted it as a trap or Cadmus engineered his own heartbreak, the result was identical. The stone summons shades, not people. They look and sound like the person who died, but they belong to a place the living cannot follow, and they know it. Cadmus used the stone to call back the woman he loved, and she returned cold and miserable. He spent his remaining days watching a shadow of his happiness stand in the room and suffer, until he hanged himself to join her properly. The cruelest artifact on this list killed its creator through kindness. The stone passed down through generations until it landed in the Gaunt family, who had no idea what they owned. Marvolo Gaunt wore it set into a ring and bragged about it, the Peverell coat of arms stamped on it, never realizing he was waving around Deathly Hallow at dinner. Voldemort later turned that ring into a horcrux, which means the Resurrection Stone spent part of its life keeping the one wizard alive who feared death more than anyone in history. Honestly, even by wizarding standards, the irony is architectural. Harry used it once, walking into the forest to die and let the shades of his parents, Sirius and Lupin, walk beside him. Then he dropped it in the dirt and never looked back, making him the first and only owner wise enough to let go. The Cloak of Invisibility. The youngest Peverell brother asked Death for something so he could leave without being followed, and received a cloak that made its wearer truly invisible. His brothers wanted power and the reversal of death. Ignatia just wanted to walk away quietly, which turned out to be the only smart wish of the 3. Most invisibility cloaks on the market decay. The magic wears thin, the fabric goes patchy. Disillusionment charms fade. Ignatius's cloak never degraded, never failed, and never answered to any summoning spell or revealing charm, because it was a hollow. Wild idea, I know, but the humblest of the 3 Deathly Hallows might actually be the most impressive. Dumbledore spent years searching for the wand. Voldemort turned the stone into a horcrux by accident, and the cloak just sat folded into a trunk doing its job for 700 years, without anyone realizing what it was. Ignatia wore it until old age, then passed it to his son, starting the only unbroken inheritance chain of any Hollow. It traveled down the family tree through generations until it reached the Potters, where James used it for schoolboy mischief and Dumbledore borrowed it to study. When Harry got it for Christmas in his first year, wrapped in anonymous paper with a note about his father, he had no idea he was unwrapping a piece of Death's wardrobe. Unknown creators. Some of the most famous objects in the wizarding world have no inventor on file, and the silence says more than a signature would. Take the Mirror of Erised. It shows the deepest desire of whoever looks into it, and canon admits nobody knows who built it or why. The best guess is that some unknown witch or wizard created it in spirit of fun, which is a terrifying definition of entertainment. It drifted through history, ruining lives until Dumbledore repurposed it as a security system for the stone, finally giving the thing a job that didn't involve driving people mad. Time Turners came from the Department of Mysteries, but who designed the first one remains classified. Probably because the inventor kept meeting themselves at lunch and nobody could pin down which version filed the patent. The Ministry's entire stock was smashed during the Battle of the Department of Mysteries, which either solved a massive safety hazard or destroyed something irreplaceable, depending on your comfort level with paradoxes. The Goblet of Fire picks one champion per school and enforces a binding magical contract. And nobody has ever explained who carved a wooden cup with that kind of authority. The pensive sits in the headmaster's office extracting and storing memories, old enough that its origins predate reliable records. And the Hogwarts Express, a steam engine that carries every student to school each September, was actually a Muggle train the Ministry purchased and enchanted under Minister Odeline Gamble, requiring the largest mass memory charm in British history to cover the operation. So, why did the wizarding world never take over the Muggle world? That's your next lesson here at Stickman Hogwarts. Click now before someone obliviates the video.